Okay. Today we're going to do four different things, time permitting, of having to do with Kashering. It has nothing to do with short pants. It's just that they're four short things that are basically unrelated to each other, except they all have to do with Kashering. I got more than one comment on that already. Okay. And the first is we're going to talk about Corelle. Corelle dishes were made in the 70s, and at first when they first came out, people looked at it and said it was like an amazing thing that they could be seemingly made out of glass. They come from Corning, which is a glass company. They did come from Corning, a glass company, but yet they're so durable. It was like people couldn't figure out what was it and how do we treat it halachically. What is this thing? But it's been long settled that Corelle dishes are just a glass, and that has two nafkaminas that they're glass. Two nafkaminas to us that is glass. First is Sfardim hold that glass doesn't absorb at all. So they can and they do use the same dishes from the Chutz and Fleishigs, Chametz and Pesach, because they don't absorb. No problem. They don't have to do anything with that. And even Ashkenazim, who are machmir about glass, we don't treat glass like that. But under the right circumstances, we are mekel. The Ramos says the document says b'diavad we mekel, whatever exactly that means. So we have kulas because it's made out of glass. Okay, that's one nafkamin that it's glass. And the second is that since they're made of glass, they need to be tevillah. Because glass has to be tevillah, the bracha, regular tevillah like everything else. Okay, so both those things should not be news to you listening to this. And then two things came up that weren't new, and I don't know why we never realized this beforehand. These two things that came up that mom was like should have been staring us in the face, really, or at least one of them. Yeah, actually both. They're very clear, no secrets, and yet somehow people miss it. Okay, and the first is like this. The first one comes from Rabbi Raka. The question, the point comes from Rabbi Raka, and that is, he says, it's true that the glass dishes are glass. He says, but there's decorations. That's part of the thing. Of the Corelle has decorations, and decorations are on top of the glass. Okay, even though you think not like that. And you could feel it yourself. For now, I'm going to give you this one to feel. You could feel them on top if you want to. You could feel that the decoration is on top.
It wears off all the time?
No, that's part of their chachma, is that it does not wear off, and it's.
Must be colored.
So we'll get to that part in a second. You could feel it on there, and you can see here. This is a video taken. Hold on a second. Oh, sorry, we'll go back. Sorry. This is a video before I show what it is. This is a video taken inside in the company. Showing you how they with the word is silk screen. People say maybe that's not technically the right word, but they silk screen the what they call the decoration, the paint on top of the plate. The plate is already done, and they put it on top of it. I'm only going to show you a few seconds of the video, but the plate is really already done. They put it on top of it. And here, whoops, sorry, you don't want to see that one yet. Why is this not playing?
Robotic arms position a membrane above each dish. Then, a press head pushes the membrane down onto the surface, transferring the paint.
Okay, so
Robotic arms then move the dishes back onto it.
Okay, so it just puts the paint right on top of it. Now even though the plate is glass, even though we're going to say that the plate is glass, but the ink that's on top of it is not glass.
All Corelle has this ink, or
Well, I don't. Yeah, it's possible.
Painted.
You could buy Corelle that's just plain white. There's such a thing as plain pure white Corelle. But most Corelle that I've ever seen always has some kind of decoration on it.
but every decoration is going to have this substance.
It's painted on top. The paint goes on top.
Never gets absorbed.
Right. If you watch the whole videos, which I'm not going to bore you with, the whole video, all the dishes come out plain white. Come out of the original creation of the dish. It's just plain white or clear, white, and then the decoration is put on afterwards. Okay, and they're all done like that. And you go home and fill the dishes. If you have Corelle at home, you can feel it yourself, and you'll see that you'll feel it on top. And the way they do it is like they just showed you. There's another one that's somewhat put on the side. That's a little bit differently, but give or take, it's the same thing. They take the finished dish and they put it on top of it. Okay, which means is this is Rabbi Raka's question, and he was correct. He asked me look at it, but in fact it's correct. So Sfardim can't use it. They can't use it for mechuzas fleishik, so chametz and pesach, because, and he says they won't do it. He says because this stuff is not glass, so they make it about glass, but the paint. Now, what would happen with the evid? It's probably very small amounts, and it's only kedei klipa because you put your food onto it as a klisheni. But that's a b'diavad kind of question, but not lechatchila. It's not a glass. It's really not a glass plate.
How do you start passing it with Mishnah and Shefa?
I don't know if it's shefa. I'm not sure if shefa. Maybe.
Small piece of food that goes on.
Right, food right. Imagine you put a food right into here. It's on kedei klipa. Maybe that would make a difference. Maybe davar gush, the makeup at davar gush. So maybe all kinds of things would play into it. But just to say it's glass and therefore I could ignore it, that's what their attitude is, and that seemingly is not correct. Okay, now the second question is maybe that ink, the paint is cheres. Okay, why would I think that cheres? So the reason to think that maybe that was cheres is because the company told me that they make it with this is their words, ceramic-based enamel paint. Okay, those are sounding really dangerous words. Ceramic and enamel. I was like, oh my gosh, wake up all the rabbis, right? That's like dangerous words to hear. And then also, if you watch the videos, and it goes through a kiln afterwards. Oops, sorry, wrong. So they're not supposed to see it. Okay, so they sorry about that. They put it through a kiln afterwards for 5 minutes at 1500 degrees. So putting things into a kiln and telling me that it's ceramic and enamel gets all the rabbis scared. And I tried to press them for more information. They, of course, wouldn't tell me because it's proprietary what exactly all these details are. But so I talked to people in the paint industry and I said to them, okay, tell me how you understand what I gave them a lot of details about what I heard and what I saw and said to them, what do you make of that? So they said like this. They said that term ceramic paint and enamel, I'm sorry.
Based enamel paint.
Ceramic, correct, whatever. Those things have nothing to do. He says that's just what they call things that are made from metal oxides, a metal with oxygen, like iron oxide and chromium oxide and a bunch of things which make all kinds of colors. They're really good at making colors, all different types of colors, like iron oxide is rust, like you know what that means. And that comes like browns and yellows, and then chromium oxide I think makes blues, all kinds, each one makes different colors. He says when you're making paints that could stick onto metal and glass and things like that, you call it an enamel paint. And so they just call that a ceramic, what do they call them? A ceramic-based enamel paint means is you made the paint out of metal oxides. And they said, and I said, what about that? It sits in the kiln for so long, for 5 minutes? They said, no. If you were putting something into a kiln to do what the Magen Avraham talks about, which we're going to talk about in a bit, in order to turn something clay adam into clay cheres, it has to sit for a very long time at higher temperatures. 5 minutes at 1500 degrees is what it would do is it would bake it on. It would make it stick, adhere better, and that's why in fact it doesn't come off at all. It stays there forever. It's very permanent, the colors. Meaning after they silk screen it, it dries right away. Okay, and you could touch it. In fact, on the video, the guy did. He touches it, and it doesn't run. But the kiln makes it hold on to it better, and that's why it could last for a long time, and it doesn't rub off. Okay, but that would not have the effects that we need, which we'll talk about later, to make it to cheres. So I'm going to work with the assumption that the coating is not a cheres. So that means if you're
maybe 5 minutes is enough for this thin coating, as opposed to that Magen Avraham was talking about a kli.
It could be the paint people didn't think that's what it was. They said, nah, that just makes it adhere better onto the thing, but it doesn't make the changes. It doesn't change any of the physical properties of the thing to make it into cheres. That's what they thought. So we'll hope for the best and assume that it's not cheres, which means it's for Sephardim, they can kasher their dishes because the base is fine. The base is glass. They don't have to worry about that. They just have to worry about the top, and they could just kasher it. And for us, we'll just say it's glass with something on top of it that would have blias, and so that's how we treat it. That's the first thing about Corelle. Okay, now the second thing about it is this question came from the consumer, but the company is not shy about it. That the company after they make the dishes, before they ship them out, they spray oil on top of them in order to keep them from getting scratched while they're in transport. And here's a video of them doing that. Watch it.
They also spray the dishes in a soy-based silicone. This wash-off coating prevents scratches during packaging.
Okay, so they put it. Now, I'm not here to talk about the kashrus of it. Okay, we'll just hope for the best that it's not a kashrus issue. The question is like this, but
They spray it on when it's hot.
they do not. No, it's not hot. No, I'm not talking about the kashrus of it. The question.
Rinse off.
So the instructions that they give on the website, which again they're not shy about that, they put this on, is to wash it with hot soapy water and it'll come off. Okay, but my question was, maybe it should be a chatzitza for tevilling it. Okay, and that's because the din is if you have a ruboy she'enai makbid. and there's something that's covering the whole kli, most of the kli, and you're not makban on, you couldn't care less, midarbanan, that's a chatzitza for tevillah. So the question was, well, if they spritz this all over the place, maybe it's all over the whole kli. You're not makban. And most of, until 30 seconds ago, you didn't even know that it was on there. You've been using your Corelle dishes for 100 years, and maybe no one cares about it, but maybe it should be a chatzitza for tevillah.
Does it have a washes?
So the question is,
A lot of people wash new things.
Before
when
they
they
make
get
them?
things.
So
Some
some
people something on there. They
No,
don't.
he's saying it's
So
not.
you're just gonna make it a rubai amak, but it makes it worse.
Right.
He's saying maybe it's even a rubai
oh,
amak.
but
So you have to wash it before you title it, and then of course you're gonna have
There's a lot
to.
more.
what?
People.
There's a lot more.
So the question is maybe it's like so nothing, like again, until a minute ago, and now I'm up to a minute, until a minute ago, you didn't even know there's such a thing. No one even cares. They take the dish and they walk home with it. Whoever's reading the FAQs on the website or sees David's silly videos wouldn't know that. How would you know that they have this thing? So I wasn't sure, I had a feeling that's what it was. So I bought 2 dishes, okay? This one I didn't wash, okay? And this one I washed in hot soapy water. And I put it through the dishwasher to really be it, okay? And you can feel the 2 of them, and tell me if you feel anything, okay? The one with the label on it is the one that was not washed at all. Tell me if you feel anything on there.
I think you can feel it.
What did you say?
I think you can feel it.
You think you could feel it?
Barely.
Well, it's you also don't use your hand that you just got full of the grease on this dish. 'Cause of course,
Yeah, you're feeling my.
if you're feeling the grease, you smear some here on the
Okay, so
use separate hands or feel the the washed one first.
You can feel it. You can. Once you compare it, you can cut something there.
Okay, so-
When you're
So-
comparing it, but it's
So I said, Rabbi, first, I said, this question I can't ask you over the phone. Okay, this one I have to knock on your door for this question. I knocked on his door, I said, here, you touch it. He says, it's nothing. Forget about it. You can type it, ignore it, pay no attention to it. It says, it's nothing, deal. Like
That's
you said,
something we're in trouble.
what do you say?
If that's something we're in trouble.
Yeah, he
Because
says,
a lot of things.
he says, it's nothing, get out of here, don't leave me alone. Again, go do your own thing. Okay, so that's for additions. Okay, next thing. Okay, next topic. Not connected to the first one. What?
Just for tevillah.
But today's only Kashering shorts. We're not talking about Kashrus.
Kashrus is usually what say that.
I take that. I'm not talking about Kashrus. Right, for Kashrus, we worry about. Yes. Okay. Next.
Once kashrus is a problem, then it could be a chatzitza.
Okay.
Once you say,
Because then you're
I
not
watch
like
like
an
kashrus.
absolute.
Okay. I have no idea. Okay. Now, one of the ways of kashering that's very rarely used is called milui. Milui is you put the kli soak it into water, and it sits there for 24 hours. After 24 hours, you dump out the water, and you do it again for 24 hours in new water, and
In water?
it soaks in water.
You fill
Well, you have to do milui for the outside also, so it has to be water on all sides of it. You're getting bleeds out from all sides of it.
It's only if it goes to
Really?
From what?
You only get the water from the inside?
It's on both sides.
Really?
It's only
Really,
Yeah.
you have to be
Regular
submerged
extra
and.
Fill it with water.
Regular extra kalim. In our pot, you only kasher on the
Okay.
inside.
No. Actually, possibly kash on the outside also.
Doesn't say
Well, wait,
tevillah.
okay. I'm gonna pause on that. I'm only saying on experience, just because when I was a little kid, my mother used to do it in the bathtub, everything got together. So it could be not, and maybe I'll have to think about that again. Okay, kasha, we do kasha kalim on the outside. I have to think about it. In my mind, you do it on all sides. It's not relevant to today's question. Okay, not again. Okay, you do it for 24 hours. You dunk out the water. You do it again for 24 hours. You dump out the water again. You do it a third time for 24 hours. Okay, 3 things each of 24 hours with new water, and that kashas it. The reason why you don't use it is because it's for very, very specific cases. It's only where there was no blias of hot, and only for specific isurim. So it's very unusual that we should do milui. Okay.
We don't maybe do it specifically, but we know that maybe sherry casks are really eared out by the whiskey.
We don't know about Kiva. Okay. So it's such a thing, but we it's almost never that we do it. Okay. But there was one time there was. Okay. There was a caterer. He had kosher dishes, kosher glasses, drinking glasses that were only used for cold. However, he decided they were only cold. They never had any heat in them, and they were kosher, and they wanted to use them for Pesach. Okay, and that it came out to a very specific case where he was allowed to do milui v'irui. Wonderful. Okay, and he was going to do it. They were going to do milui v'irui. Well, what happened? It was a year. It was not this year. I think it was 5 years ago. It was erev Pesach Shabbos. Okay, and they weren't so well planned. And the third day of milui v'irui was going to end on Shabbos morning. Okay, so the question was, could they do milui v'irui, the third filling or soaking, whatever you want to call it? Could they do that on erev Shabbos? Okay, so
Shabbos.
they should do it on erev Shabbos. That it would finish on Shabbos.
Oh, it finished.
It would finish on Shabbos. Okay, so So there's all kinds of reasons why you're not allowed to kasher things, libun and hagol on Shabbos. But over here, everything was being done before Shabbos. Here, everything was being done before Shabbos. So from the kashering perspective, I know we're talking about kashering today, but from the kashering perspective, it's not a problem. They were going to do it before Shabbos. Okay, on Friday morning they were going to put it into the water, and then it was going to the kashering was going to happen by itself. That was the hilchah Shabbos from the hagol's kalim part of hilchah Shabbos is not a problem. But the other question was, should it be muktzah? Okay, and that is because before Shabbos, they specifically put these dishes away. We're not using these cups. They put them. They were iskatoi when Ben Moshe started. And should we say maybe they were put away before Shabbos started, and therefore they should be muktzah. We shouldn't be able to take them out. Okay. What do you say?
It's any vinyl.
So there's two reasons why it's not. And the first is that they're actually very usable over Shabbos. Okay, even though the guy put them away, there's a lot of things you could use them for. You could use them for chametz before Shabbos. They're not useless. It's not like things that are fruits that are drying out that have no use while they're halfway dried out. They could use them for chametz. They can actually even use them for Pesach food. If they don't use it for had in the right ways, they could use it like that. And the second is because there's a din that the migud diskatzoy is only a problem if it won't naturally happen by itself to get to the permitted to the way you want to use it. By the case, by drying out fruit, it says there it's totally on it being a hot sunny day, and that's not in your hands whether that's going to happen. So it's katzoi. But if you have something where it's automatic, like here, it's just automatic, it just sits there for 24 hours, it'll be. So there's no problem with katzoi. So they were okay; they were allowed to do that, and they kashered it and whatever. And then come Shabbos morning, they took them out and they were ready to go. Okay. Next. Okay, that was quick. Okay. Next is chafing dishes. So you've seen chafing dishes. They have this food heating up in some kind of a device. This whole thing is called a chafing dish, and it's made of a bunch of parts. Okay, it has a bunch of parts to it, and the part is on the very bottom. There's what we call a sterno, a canister of fuel, some kind of a frame that holds in it a water pan. That pan, as Kishmoy can do, it has water inside of it, and what it does is that water takes the heat from the flames that are underneath it. Instead of the heat being just in one spot, it spreads the heat because the water boils underneath there and the steam rises up evenly all over the place. And so that it heats up the food that's in the food pan that's on top of it. Okay, so the food is now being evenly heated by the water that's coming above it, and then there's a cover on top. Okay, they call a lid. Okay, a cover on top. Okay, so the question is the water pan. If we need to kasher the water pan, that for sure gets hagol. Okay, the blia happened. It's al ha'esh. The blia is happening al ha'esh, but the blia is through water. Okay, the blia is through water. So things that happen through water al ha'esh only need to have hagol for them. So the water pan could be kasher with hagol. That's fine. The question is how to kasher the food pan. Okay, how do we kasher the food pan? So most assume, including I think us, that you need to do libun on the food pans. They say, wait a second, why do libun? It's also over the water like that. And the reason is because the food pan, even though the way you see it, the end user see it, is on top of this pot of water, but they also put food right into it and stick it into the oven. In other words, this is just the way they keep it warm. This is not the way you could heat up food on this, but a lot of caterers will take the food, they stick it into the oven, then we're ready to serve it to people, put it out onto the shaving dishes as a way to serve it to the people, and it stays hot on there. But the real heating of it gets done in the oven. So you put the...
Even without that, it's directly on the pot, right?
Say it again?
It's not on the edge.
It's not on the edge. There's water in between them.
Well, it's not considered elevation as well.
No, because there's water. The fire is not having its direct effect on the cleave because there's a buffer of water. If the water in the pot would consider to be a buffer.
What's the issue that we're kashering from? There was food that was straight inside.
Yeah.
So if you have it's a clearation. It's a clearation. There's no water medium in there. So why would that need?
Can't go to 12.
Cleavation doesn't need liquid. No, cleavation only have it if there's no liquid. But here there is a liquid.
Not between the food and the pot that we're kashering.
But the fire is not having a direct effect on the cleave because there's this water in between them. The water, just like the water in the pot would be in between. Here, the water between
You
the
have
fire.
an oven that's heated with steam pipes running
I
through it,
understand why somebody gets it.
right? You have an oven that's heated with steam pipes running through it. And let's say you take something dry and put it in there. Does that need leave it or go?
I don't think that needs liquid, no?
No.
I think Shlomo Miller said that it needs to go.
Yeah. It's not there. It's not fire. There because it's not even fire. Your case is not even fire. But in this
Here
case,
also,
the
there's
same
no
thing also.
fire.
The fire is not what's having the direct effect on the kli. There's this something from the fire.
Just the way of the heat source. But when we talk about Hagolah from Isser or Mikkel for Hagolah, and not Ibon, is because the actual liquid in the pot is.
I mean, so how do we know that? How do we know he's not right? How do we know that's not the right kind?
You look at what the food is?
That's what he's saying. Okay.
The pot is hot. The pot is hot. There's not liquid inside. It's solids that are directly being heated in this
What's
pan.
that? We're not discussing up or not. Makes no difference whether they mind or not.
It doesn't.
You know, it can't get past 212. You know that. Since it's buffered by water, it can't get past 212.
It's
Fire is.
It's a Belay they now they mine, so you need leaving.
It's Belay day H and he's leaving.
Right. This is all they.
No, it's
This
not
is no
day
H.
No, it's only
This
day
is-
H.
It's
There's
Belay
a
day
whole
H.
shpuz like when we have liquids that are isser if it needs liban or hagal. There's mamipanu and some sefer and this and that. So we're making if the actual isser is liquid, but this the isser is solid, and the liquid is on the is
Okay.
just the way the heat source.
I don't. And not to me, it's obvious the other way. But okay, good. You can see your way. So then you can go home. I have one more thing. No, I have one more thing to talk about. So you could stay around for that. Okay. So the assumption people make is that they should do leave it on it because these food pans go into the ovens also. Okay. However, there's a good argument to say that no, maybe you get away with hakol also. Okay, and that's because of the din of roiv tashmishay, and that is because the roiv tashmishay of the pan, I believe, is on the chafing dish. Okay, that's the roiv tashmishay. You're making faces at me.
You know, time wise,
You know,
Mhm.
right.
What?
You're saying first
it
of all,
might
it's
cook for a couple
hour,
hours.
but also that assumes that every time they make it in here, it goes into the chafing dish.
What's the other choice?
When they make it when they bake the kugel in there and then they serve it and they plate it out.
So you're saying maybe it's not correct even that's roiv
It could be
tashmishay.
3 out of 4 times. It could be right. It could be they're baking a chicken in there that's full of water. A lot of the products that go in there have liquid. So even if they went in the oven, it would
Okay,
be,
fine. So
so it could be still right, but it's harder to know that.
okay, so then I'm corrected. My point was going to be was that we only have to be choishish. The Ramah says since being choishish from me tashmishay is a chumrah, we only have to be choishish that if that will make it possible to still kasher. If it'll make it impossible to kasher, we don't have to be choishish from me tashmishay. It's Ramah in your day. So you don't have to be choishish from me tashmishay. So my thinking was that since it's only me tashmishay in the way that needs libun, and we can't do libun to that. They're not possible realistically.
We don't believe in the mice.
No, what we do is we say is it needs liba and therefore can't be kasher.
Got it.
Therefore, exactly what the Ramah says. If you come to that point, you say I can't kasher it, then don't be choishish from me tashmishay. So that was my point. Was so then in Cain, if that's true, so then we don't have to worry about that because we don't have to be choishish from me tashmishay. And you guys are arguing back, which is fine. That maybe it's not me tashmishay. Maybe it is roiv tashmishay. And again, once we get to that point where it's like we have to sit and kricharai into how the guy does it, then it's not good. We're not good. In fact, we don't let them kasher the food pans. Okay, fine.
Well, why can't they put it into the oven and leave it?
Yeah,
It's
they
not-
catch on
Leave
trays.
gummer?
They do leave it on trays.
No, they don't.
Send
No.
it back to the factories.
Yeah, the guys who reglaze
Right.
who could do it. No, I'm sorry, no.
It's
Reglazing is
not-
not Liban Gummer. That's only Liban Kal.
Not the self-cleaning, the cycle of the
Yeah, but this is not a kind of thing that's ready to go through of cleaning. You know what I mean?
This is
When they do Liban Gummer to the pan guy is a guy who literally makes it to thousands of 1,000 degrees, not the regular reglazing. But that's not what this. That's not. No one's
This
gonna do
won't
this.
survive that.
I don't know if it would survive.
Probably discolor it.
Yeah, it's not. This is a fancy and beautiful looking dish. It's not meant for no. They just say forget it. Get new ones. Okay, kosher ones. This is like they come to a Chafe hotel. You know.
And they're not terribly expensive.
Okay. My last thing. Okay, there's a zillion kinds of countertops. Okay, I don't know what people did 100 years ago, but there's a zillion every there's 100 new kinds of. Oh no, okay, I'm exaggerating. There are many new kinds of countertops. Okay, and the question is, everybody wants to know: can I kasher my countertop? Can I not kasher it? Okay. CRC allows kashering of synthetic materials, so we're good on a lot of countertops. We're going to be good if they're synthetic. We also, of course, can kasher klei adamo, things that are made from natural stone and things like that, things that just come out of the ground. We can kasher those also. So what we can't kasher is glass or cheres. That's what we can't kasher. Okay. So what's the difference between klei adama and klei cheres? So the Magen Avraham, I mentioned it quickly beforehand. The Magen Avraham says, I'm going to explain. He says, what's the difference? Klei adama is things that come out of the ground, like metal or dirt or wood or anything like that comes out of the ground. Is klei adama, you can kasher them, and klei cheres, we can't kasher. What's the difference?
Stone.
What do you say?
Stone.
Comes out of the ground, like klei adama. Things come out of the ground, we
That
can
would
kasher
know the
them.
difference. We know there's clearly evidence.
What's the difference?
It's a stone. It's a stone. The one, that's clear. Adama and Cheres, I understand. Evan is something else.
What's the difference? What's
Well, it's a stone. It's a stone. It's a rock. It's different.
The question is what's the
What's the difference if I have? What's the
Ram is asking, what's the difference? How do you?
No. How do I know?
If I'm asking why is there a difference, he's asking what is the difference? It's the same thing. But he's not asking what is the difference between stone and Cheres.
Cheres is made from little pieces of stone, and stone is made out of big pieces of stone. What's the difference? It's all.
That's the difference. One's made out of sand, and one's made out of stones. That's it. There's no question. He doesn't ask Evan. He asks Adama. They're two different things.
Okay. Say it how you like. Okay. So Magen Avraham says, I'll tell you what the difference is. Okay, what the difference is. He says, difference is when you take something out of the ground, anything out of the ground, you take asbestos, right, when they use asbestos, you can kasher it. Anything that comes out of the ground, you could kasher it. You could kasher it. But, he says, but when we take something out of the ground and we put it into a fire, this huge, very hot fire, a kiln, and it comes out of there with very different properties, we change it from what it was into something different, not like metal that we just burn away impurities, and it's basically the same metal, we just burned away the impurities in the silver, and we got left with the original. We take this and it comes up with whole new properties, and look at it, Cheres doesn't look like dirt at all, okay, like sand at all, it's a whole different, like mud at all, it's a whole different thing. So when we do that, now it has these new properties, that's what the Torah says we can't kasher, because now that's Cheres, and that's the thing that the Torah says we can't kasher. Okay, so now, so what happens when we look at a countertop and we say, what do they make this out of? Okay, so a lot of the newer countertops are a certain amount of natural materials, basically held together with epoxy, held together with a synthetic material, which we can kasher them, no problem. Okay, but other ones describe things like pressed and heated to 1200 degrees Celsius to take on desired properties, or 100% natural raw materials when sintered, I don't know what that word means, at a temperature of 1230 Celsius, becomes a new compact material with incomparable technical performance. Okay? So I don't know what all that means, but all of that says to me is they took something out of the ground, they put it into a kiln for a long time, for a very high temperature, and it got new properties. Okay, that sounds like what the Magen Avraham described. Okay, so in which case we say,
but if you start off with stone, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
If you start off with a stone, you don't do that. If you take a piece of granite out of the ground, you don't stick it into a kiln. It doesn't do anything. It is a granite and it walks out as a granite. Nothing. You have no reason to do that. You're saying if I would do it, why would anybody do that? It has no.
You're right.
Right. No. So the Magen Avraham says it has to take on new properties, which it doesn't. The stone would be the same beginning and end. Okay. So that's what we would say. When we hear things like that, we see things like that, we say this thing is Cheres, you can't kasher. Okay. So there's a question to that. It's just like this. A lot of these companies, part of their explanation of what they have is when we finish, after we made this thing, we made something that's not porous. Okay, we made that's part of their promotion is that we made something that we did all this fancy process and we made a count that's non-porous. I mean, you could put stuff onto it as opposed to some stones that you poured, it could get stained and this and like that. Ours is non-porous. Okay, so now what does that say to you? We take something out of the ground, we heat it in the kiln and give it new properties, and we make something that's not porous. What does that sound like to you? Okay. That's glass. Glass. That's what the Rishonim say. The Rishonim didn't say that glass is different because this is made out of sand and this is made out of mud, dirt, mud. It's made of two different. That's not the difference. The difference is they said is it's Shia. When you look at it, you see it doesn't absorb. To them, it was obvious. You look at this thing. This material is obviously not going to absorb. Okay? So we're Ashkenazim and we're machmir that even that is treated like Cheres because it goes through the same process as Cheres. Give or take, glass goes through the same process. It goes through the same process and it comes out looking like it doesn't absorb. But we say, listen, we don't know. It looks like Cheres. We're not willing to say that it doesn't absorb at all. Okay, so that's what we say as Ashkenazim. So, but these counters sound exactly like the same thing. They go through the process. The description is exactly like Cheres. It's true. But the end result is something that l'chayra to us should strike us the same as glass. So I'm not saying we should kasher it. The question is, should we maybe take it not as seriously and be able to say is, you can't kasher it because it's glass. Maybe if you're a Sephardi, you could do it. But if Ashkenazi, you can't kasher it because it's only glass and it's not Cheres. Okay, we don't. We in fact say it should be treated like Cheres, but I'm just questioning that maybe we should treat it like glass because basically that's what it is. Again, it's not glass per se, but as far as it has the same, I don't know, comes across the same way as the glass.
Those that say the glass are not related, they just based it on Mitzvah, on Riyah Mitzvahs, right?
Correct. Correct.
Do the same thing. Why not?
Right. So again, we as Ashkenazim don't do that. Hagam Rishonim, most of them said.
What's still?
What do you say?
Stainless steel also we could say it's like,
No, we're starting from the wrong side. We're starting the glass, stainless steel. The Torah says we have to kasher it.
stainless steel.
It doesn't say. You're right.
It's not porous, right?
Is it? It's not any less,
We don't
any
really
more
see that
porous
any
than
metal
iron.
is porous. We don't use metal b'chaf.
Right, any metal, not just stainless.
Maybe we don't have enough idea of what's considered porous and what's not.
No, but we have no reason to say that. What I'm saying, we don't know, and I don't know. We're sort of stuck. We're stuck with those, so to speak. But on these things that are the only reason to not kasher it is because we're treating it like Kashrus. That's the only reason. We would kasher it. The etzem we would kasher it. We would kasher it, except that we say the glass is like it's really made on the ground. We really could kasher it. We're not kashering because the Torah said don't kasher cheres because it absorbs a lot, which in fact it really does. Cheres actually really does absorb a lot. But then when they looked at it and they said, but it's not belay. It's obvious that it's not belay. You can look at glass, you know it's not being belay. So my question is, should we not treat this the same way? We just give it a little bit of a lower status. We won't kasher it, but should we give it a different status? That's just a question.